Title: My daughter said I abandoned her. The truth was buried in a box for 2 decades. Chapter 1: The message that shattered everything. I was sitting at my kitchen table, half reading emails and sipping lukewarm coffee, when the Instagram notification popped up. A name I didn't recognize. Emma. 20 years old. The first sentence of her message made me freeze. I just wanted you to know that I graduated college without any help from the father who abandoned me. I must have read that line a dozen times trying to make sense of it. She said I was her father. That I had left her and her mother, walked out and never looked back. I couldn't breathe. I don't have a daughter. At least, I didn't think I did. Then I saw her mother's name, Sarah. That name hit like a punch to the chest. Sarah Martinez. My girlfriend from community college. We were kids back then, me 22 studying business. She was 19 training to become a nurse. We dated for about 8 months before she vanished. No calls, no texts, nothing. One day we were talking about weekend plans. The next she was gone. Her roommate always had an excuse. I went to her apartment more times than I want to admit, but it was like she disappeared off the face of the earth. After 2 weeks I stopped trying. What else could I do? I figured she ghosted me. Maybe she met someone else. I was hurt, but I moved on. And now, 20 years later, this young woman was telling me I had walked out on a child I never even knew existed. Emma said her mother told her I dumped Sarah the second I heard about the pregnancy. That I wanted nothing to do with either of them. That I threatened to deny the baby was mine if she ever came after me for support. It was like hearing someone describe a stranger wearing my face. The more I read, the more my hands shook. She said her mom died in a car crash when she was 5, and her grandparents raised her. And all these years they fed her the same story, that I was a coward. A selfish, heartless man who ran the moment responsibility came knocking. But none of that was true. I didn't know Sarah was pregnant. She never told me. And if she had, God, I would have stayed. I would have done the right thing. I would have been a father. I spent that entire night digging through boxes I hadn't opened in years. Old college photos, phone bills, everything. I found my call logs from 2003, dozens of missed calls to Sarah's number. Dates, times, proof I tried to reach her after she cut me off. I stared at that evidence and wondered, what kind of person tells her family a lie so big it changes the course of 2 lives? Emma had spent years hating me. And she had no idea that the man she hated never even got the chance to know her. The next day I sent her a reply. I didn't know what to say, really. How do you explain to someone that the foundation of their pain was built on a lie? All I could do was tell her the truth. And hope, somehow, that she might be willing to hear it. But her response was colder than I ever could have prepared for. Chapter 2: Face to Face with a Ghost. Emma agreed to meet me. Not because she believed me, she made that clear, but because she wanted to look me in the eye and say what she needed to say. Her words, not mine. We set a time for Saturday afternoon at a quiet coffee shop downtown. I got there 30 minutes early, too nervous to do anything but sit in my truck and stare at the entrance. I brought a folder with me. Inside were old photos of Sarah and me, proof that we had loved each other once. Copies of my phone records, printouts from 2003, showing every unanswered call I made to her number after she vanished. I didn't know if it would matter. I didn't know if anything I brought could compete with 2 decades of poison fed to Emma by the people she trusted most. She arrived exactly on time. And when she walked in, I almost forgot how to breathe. It was like watching Sarah step through that door. Same sharp eyes, same determined walk, chin high like she was ready to take on the world. She looked so much like her mother it hurt. I stood, unsure of what to do, and she just stared at me before finally taking a seat across the table. She didn't even wait for a greeting. Emma launched into everything. Her childhood, the constant narrative of abandonment, the birthday parties where everyone else had a dad and she only had excuses. She told me about growing up under the weight of a story where I was the villain, the boy who got her mother pregnant and ran. She told me how her grandmother Maria made sure that image of me never faded. How they kept her close, told her I'd never wanted her, that her mother had cried every night because of me. She said she believed them. How could she not? They were all she had after Sarah died. I listened, quietly, trying not to cry. When she finally paused, I slid the folder across the table. My proof. The photos, the call logs, everything I could find that showed I hadn't walked away, I'd been shut out. She glanced at the papers, barely touched them. Anyone could fake this, she said. And just like that, 20 years of heartbreak slammed shut like a steel door. She stood to leave, and as she turned, she said something I'll never forget. I'm glad you weren't there, she said. You would have ruined my life the way you ruined hers. And then she was gone. I sat there long after she'd left, staring at the photo of Sarah laughing at a carnival, her arms around my shoulders. That smile. It didn't belong to someone who saw me as a monster. So what happened? Why did she lie? That night I kept replaying everything. Sarah had vanished without a word. No warning. No closure. If she was pregnant back then, how could she not tell me? Unless, she didn't want me to know. And then a name hit me like a lightning bolt through my spine. Carmen. Sarah's older sister. She was away at university back then. Maybe, just maybe, she knew what really happened. Chapter 3, The Letter in the Attic. Finding Carmen wasn't easy. She had married, changed her last name, and disappeared from social media years ago. But after days of digging through online directories and alumni databases, I found her listed as an accountant in a town 3 hours away. I sent her a message. I kept it short, told her who I was, mentioned Emma, and asked if she'd be willing to talk about Sarah. I half expected her to ignore it. Maybe she still believed the story her parents told. Maybe she hated me too. But 2 days later she replied, "I remember you. I'm willing to talk." We met at a small restaurant off the highway. Carmen looked like Sarah would have looked now, older, more grounded, the same eyes. She was polite, professional. Guarded. She pulled out a notebook. Said she had questions. And she did. About timelines, about my last conversation with Sarah, about what I remembered from those final weeks. I answered everything. I told her how Sarah and I were still making plans when she disappeared. How I called her phone again and again until I finally gave up. I showed her the same phone logs I had shown Emma. Carmen flipped through them slowly, frowning. She looked up at me, her voice quieter now. "Sarah told us you left her when she got pregnant. That you said it wasn't your problem." I shook my head. "She never told me she was pregnant. I would have stayed. I loved her." Carmen didn't say anything for a long moment. Then she whispered, "The timeline doesn't make sense." She explained that she had been away at school when it all happened. She only knew what their parents told her and what Sarah had said in the days that followed. But if my version was true, and my call logs showed I kept trying even after she'd supposedly told me, then something was wrong. When our lunch ended, Carmen looked conflicted. "I don't know what to believe," she said. "But if what you're saying is true, then my family's been living a lie." She promised to call me. 3 nights later she did, at 11 p.m. Her voice was shaking. She said after we spoke she'd gone up to her attic to find something. A box. A box she had kept for 15 years. It was full of Sarah's things, journals, cards, small keepsakes from her college years. Carmen said she hadn't looked through it since the funeral. And at the bottom of the box she found letters. Letters Sarah had written before she died. One of them was addressed to me. Chapter 4, The Letter She Never Sent. Carmen drove to my house the next evening, holding the letter like it was made of glass. She didn't say much, just handed me the envelope, sat down at my kitchen table and waited. The handwriting on the front was unmistakably Sarah's. Neat, slanted, familiar. I opened it with trembling hands. It wasn't long. Just 2 pages. But those pages shattered everything I thought I knew and everything Emma had been told. Sarah wrote that she was sorry. That she had panicked. That when she found out she was pregnant, she didn't know what to do, so she made the worst decision of her life. She wrote that she hadn't told me about the pregnancy. Not because I'd said anything cruel, but because she was scared. Scared I'd reject her. Scared I'd think she was trying to trap me. Scared that the future she saw crumbling in front of her was her fault, and that disappearing would be easier than facing it. So she ran. And when her parents asked what happened, she lied. Said I knew. Said I walked away. And the lie stuck. She admitted in the letter that she regretted it every day. Especially when Emma started asking about her father. Sarah said she had wanted to reach out to me for years, but every time she tried, the guilt stopped her. She ended the letter by saying she hoped someday Emma would know the truth. And that maybe, just maybe, I would too. The letter was dated 3 weeks before Sarah died in the car crash. She had planned to send it, but she never got the chance. I looked up from the page and Carmen had tears in her eyes. "I never read it," she whispered. "I thought you didn't deserve it." That night, Carmen called Emma. She didn't say much, just asked if they could meet. Said it was important. Said it was about her mother. Emma agreed. They met the next day in Emma's apartment near campus. And when Carmen handed her the letter, Emma read it in silence. Then she started to cry. And then, she asked for my number. Chapter 5, The Day She Called Me Dad. 3 weeks passed before my phone finally rang. It was Emma. Her voice was quiet but steady. She asked if she could come over. Said she didn't know what she wanted to say, only that she needed to say something. I told her the door was always open. She came that Sunday afternoon. She looked different, tired, like the weight of 20 years had finally settled on her shoulders. She sat on my couch, clutching a folded piece of paper in her hand. It was Sarah's letter. "I've read it over 50 times, she said, not looking at me. "And I believe you now." I nodded. I didn't trust my voice not to crack. She told me she couldn't understand why her grandparents had kept the truth from her after Sarah died. Why they had chosen to keep feeding her lies instead of giving her the chance to know me. She said she could forgive her mother. Sarah had been young, scared. But Maria and her husband? They had no excuse. "I needed to hate someone," she said. "And they gave me you." We talked for 3 hours. About Sarah. About college. About who Emma had become in the absence of knowing me. She asked me what I would have done if Sarah had told me the truth. I told her the truth. I would have been terrified, yes. But I never would have walked away. I would have raised you. I would have tried my best. She nodded slowly. Then said, "I think I would have liked that." After that, something shifted. Emma started texting me. Then calling. We met for dinner. Once, then twice a week. Conversations moved from awkward silence to laughter. She told me about grad school applications. I told her about my job, my life, everything she'd missed, everything I missed. Then one day, while helping her move into a new apartment closer to campus, she found the letter again. She looked at me and said, "Do you mind if I keep this? I think it belongs to me now." I told her it always did. That night, while we were setting up a bookshelf, she turned to me and said, "You know, I never thought I'd say this, but I don't just see you as my biological father anymore." She paused. "I see you as my dad." I didn't cry then. Not until I was back in the truck, watching her wave goodbye from the window of her new place. She's starting grad school next month. I'll be at her graduation. I'll be there for every moment I can. Because even if we lost 20 years, we've got the rest of our lives to make up for it. And Emma's right. We still have time.